Hey everyone, today we're doing something a little different and looking at some other games quite similar to Dead by Daylight and looking at the things they arguably did better than it, and as a result applying these things to Dead by Daylight for possible changes that could be made to improve it. For this video we're going to be looking at two games in particular, these being last year and a fairly recent release, Home Sweet Home Survive. These two games have a similar setup of being survival horror focused asymmetrical games, where a killer tries to stop a group of survivors from completing an objective, or set of objectives. First up, we're going to be discussing last year. Loading up last year, it was a little bit disappointing to find out that the live servers are so unpopulated that when you queue, it doesn't even put you in a lobby. It just gives you a message that says, no, sorry, no one's here. But hey, I watched some videos and I played the tutorials, and there's definitely things to be drawn from this game that could positively improve Dead by Daylight. For example, both the generator and crafting systems are so much better for a start. The way you craft items is by searching containers around the environment and gaining scrap. Once you've gained enough, you can craft different items to help you fight against the killer, heal, or give yourself stat boosts. Some things are utility, like traps or barricades, and others are more for the support side of things. First off, you can craft helmets, which gives you small additions to armor and allow you to sustain more damage before getting downed. This could quite easily be translated into Dead by Daylight, where there could be some form of armor that survivors could make to add an extra hit to them. This would definitely need some balancing though, because obviously you can't just go adding additional health states for survivors and leave it like that, but I think some kind of armor system is an interesting idea at least. Potentially an alternative would be to have this armor be temporary, so once you apply it you only have 30 or so seconds before it falls apart and is no longer useful. The other idea I had was that this armor could be used to specifically block the damage that the killer power applies. Again, tricky to implement. The other fairer use of crafting instead of armor within last year was crafting support items or healing items. For example, you can craft adrenaline shots, painkillers, alternately smoke grenades or flash grenades. I like the idea of having some kind of crafting system like this in Dead by Daylight for items that can be used for utility and strategy and not just outright buffs. Therefore, there's an emphasis on them being used cleverly. For example, crafting an adrenaline shot could be like a shorter duration version of the refined serum. You could even have the blighted cankers on the map the whole time, and as a side objective you have to collect the flowers. A bit like collecting scrap in last year, but make the process much quicker, and once you've collected enough, both killers and survivors could craft a serum, or something like that. In terms of the smoke and stun grenades, these again could be done for both sides. The smoke grenades working like clowns' bottles currently do, throwable and cover a certain area, allowing for some brief stealth elements, potentially make the smoke thicker than clowns is at the moment, so then there's more of a stealth drive to it. There would be cool counterplay to this too due to how auras work. Stun grenades I'm less keen on, as it would likely quickly turn into bullying the killer with tons of stuns. It seems like Behavior did consider adding some kind of droppable stun with the scrapped trapple, but decided against it. Obviously we have firecrackers, but I reckon this would have worked more like a droppable pallet stun over a droppable flashlight blind, if that makes sense. And again, systems for crafting these items would be a reward for searching crates and chests around the map until you have enough scrap. I like the idea of this personally. There were also small things like health states being indicated by the color of auras in last year. When a survivor is injured, they show up as red, then move to amber, and then finally to green when they're fully healed. This again is just a small thing, but it'd be a nice thing for DBD to have a system like this, especially for people who largely solo queue. They could even use the current system of the white to red auras, but just as a permanent feature rather than just for like buckle up. Another big thing for this game was how generators or objectives worked. For last year, to power up a generator you need to go collect some fuel first, which is an item that makes you slower when you're carrying it. For DBD this could be a cool feature where carrying the fuel across the map is a risk, but if put into a certain generator it could speed it up significantly. But you know, the counter is that it has to be hauled across the map and you walk slower whilst doing so, making you an easy target for the killer. This would also create fun situations where you have to collectively rally the gas across the map as a team, something like that. Finally, last year gave the capability to use toolboxes to block doorways with barricades. This seems like something perfectly possible to translate to DBD with use of a similar collect mechanic, or simply that breakable walls don't spawn as they do now, and instead you need to use a toolbox to construct a wall. Or it could be half the amount of breakable walls that spawn in currently, and then the others can be broken by the killers or fixed by the survivors. Okay, so next we're looking at Home Sweet Home Survive. This is a fairly recent release and is still in early access this, but it has probably the closest visual style to DBD with some variations in the gameplay. One thing that I think this game exemplifies is that if DBD had similar anti-killer tools like this game does, it'd be an absolute mess. Same thing goes for HSH's in-game chat, which seems to generally be filled with people getting angry with you. I like the idea of more ways to fight back, but I think HSH went a little too far, giving the survivors the ability to hit you straight up and do things like fully block doorways multiple times. I don't know, it just felt like the survivors had an abundance of things to fight back with. I feel like DBD works so well because of the lack of ability for survivors to fight back, and it's more about chases rather than it being almost an equal battle. I don't know, I think DBD has done chases and encounters with the opposite side far better, and then again HSH is clearly intending to have more ways to fight back as an alternate objective to escaping, as survivor is killing the killer. So yeah. This game also made me realize something about DBD, and that's the fact that it works so well due to the extensive variety you can find within the game. Every map or realm, survivor or killer, perks and everything feels so different and unique. For HSH, it's a lot of the same setting and tone. DBD's context is so broad due to the entities realm basically just being a sandbox. That behavior doesn't have to always have some kind of link back to their base game, other than some vague link to the entity thinking the new survivor or killer is fit to be in its realm, to which the criteria for being inside is very unclear and intentionally vague, so they can acquire any license and make it work. If Michael Myers suddenly appeared in HSH or last year, it would feel very strange. But DBD manages to do it without it feeling awkward at all, and I think that's a really key thing for DBD and how it has survived so long. One feature of HSH that I think is a definite improvement over Dead by Daylight is the slightly different versions of generators, which are these rituals. First of all, their skill checks are just slightly more engaging. They aren't very hard, but I think I found them to be a good balance of needing to focus, but also being careful of not ignoring your surroundings. I could have misinterpreted what was happening, but it seems prior to starting a ritual you do need to have incense, which you find from searching crates around the map. This is a nice little prerequisite to actually starting the main objective, and just gets things slowed down in the first part of the game, as you have to go find your incense prior to doing any rituals. This could work with generators in DBD by finding a part or finding fuel before you can start a generator up and actually start repairing it. I think that would be cool. Alternately, maybe if some maps just started having slightly different ways to interact with generators, like you need to pull two switches on opposite sides of the map at the same time to power one up and begin repairing it. Stuff like that would be cool, I think. Going back to the alternate skill checks briefly, these could be applied to something like totems, again to give a bit more engagement and make them just slightly harder. The other thing HSH does well is having elements to the map that you can interact with, like doors that you can slam behind you. I like this as an alternate solution to breakable walls, whereas both killer or survivor you can choose to either close or open the door, but the killer can also break it if they like and get it out of the way, like they can pallets. It's a small thing, but I think just some changes to the current breakable walls to give it a bit more option in how they're placed and used. Alright, well, that's gonna do it. I do hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about these games also, and what they did well. Thanks, and goodbye.